Visiting a city maybe for the second time and don't want to visit the same tourist traps? Check out Top Dog Tours. We have lots of different options for walking tours of neighborhoods and attractions that everybody will love. We are in Boston, Philadelphia, Toronto, and New York City. You can visit us at topdogtours.com and check us out on social media for offers and discounts. I'm Nicole Kelly, and we are back with part 2 of talking to the 3G Collective. And we're going to transition from talking about intergenerational trauma, at least for a moment, and talk about art and theater. So I want to start with John. So you're an actor, a director, and a choreographer. How did you first get involved dancing? And then how did you get involved choreographing and teaching dance? And can you talk about some of your favorite projects that you've worked on?
Yeah. If anyone knows the musical A Chorus Line, it was
Never heard of
essentially never heard of it. Right.
Never heard of it.
Well, there's a no. Essentially, there's a song from A Chorus Line called "I Can Do That," which is about one of the male dancers on the line talking about how he got into dancing, which was by watching his sister dance. And that is essentially what happened to me. My sister, at about 6 or 7, started taking, little dance classes. And when we would go to pick her up, I would watch some of the classes and see some of the boys there and think, oh, actually, that looks like a lot of fun. I kind of want to do that. And so Mom was like, great. And she enrolled me in dance class. I was about.
How old were you in this? Yeah, how old were you?
I was about 9 or 10.
Okay, so you were
About
like a
9 or
fully
10?
formed child and had bodily awareness. You weren't like
Yeah.
my my daughter's in ballet, and sometimes I'm like, these children have no control of their bodies.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I was. Yeah, I mean, I definitely had a lot to learn, but I just really took to it. It was the only sort of thing that I ever was motivated to try to get better at. That was one thing. I had, even when I moved to Australia and I, joined the local Jewish community basketball team, and I was trying to do all these sports and stuff, and I was just like,
I'm thinking of that Bill Finn song about the Jewish people playing baseball.
Yeah, Jewish people play it. Yeah, it's
may
like,
his memory
who
be a
can't play
blessing.
baseball?
Bill, I know. Yeah,
I know.
I know. I immediately sent you a message. I was like,
You
I
did.
cannot. I
Rest in
cannot.
peace,
I was
Bill
leaving
Finn.
the museum and I was just starting to cry on the train because talk about like intergenerational trauma music.
Oh my God.
If you do not know who Bill Finn is, please Google Bill Finn. He wrote a musical called Falsettos, which is my heart. It's one of the most Jewish shows ever written, and his Jewishness kind of bled into everything that he wrote.
Yeah. Beautiful songwriter. So I was essentially, I just noticed that everything, that dance was the only thing that I actually ever really wanted to improve in and get better at. And then I finally, started really taking it seriously at about 14, 15, where I was going, 3 days a week after school on Saturdays to dance class. And I started taking acting classes and singing lessons. I was just, I was like, this is my direction. This is where I need to be. And then that, luckily got me into a really great college in Australia where I studied musical theater as a degree. And in
big
terms
money
of
maker, those BFAs. Big money maker.
Oh yeah. Especially in Australia, in a country of only 20 million people, the industry there is even smaller. But what was great though was that I only started properly choreographing after college. I was not intending to really choreograph at all, and in a way, there's a part of me that still feels I'm not sort of meant to, or sort of. I feel like a real choreographer, but I essentially helped start a Shakespeare repertory company, or was part of the founding of a Shakespeare rep company. And after a while, they realized I was doing most of their shows, and they realized that I was a dancer, and so they started asking me to dance captain, and then eventually they started asking me to choreograph some of their productions. Some of them I was in and also choreographed, which also was a massive headache, and I don't think I ever want to choreograph a show / be in one, at least in a musical or a play setting, because that was a lot. But it was I really started to sort of get into it more just because people asked me to do it, and I have always been and was sort of raised in the style of real jazz ballet techniques. So real, and especially, with a lot of storytelling through movement. So influenced by like Jerome Robbins and later on, particularly Christopher Wheeldon and real, ballet choreographers who can tell incredible stories through movement really kind of were my North Star. And then I actually then started developing this real love for like making dance films and seeing how I could film dance and create little mini vignettes or short narratives that were all danced and all filmed, which also has kind of become a new kind of love and of mine that I've made maybe about 4 so far, and I'm definitely into making more. But in terms of my performing career, I mean, I was very lucky to be able to do a fantastic production of West Side Story in Sydney. It was actually done outside on Sydney Harbor.
Wow.
It was sort of
Very cool.
if you think of the Muni stage in St. Louis, it was about that size.
That's a very big stage.
Yeah,
like they have full on like horses on that stage.
Yeah,
sometimes.
but it was on the water in front of the Sydney Opera House and the Sydney Harbor Bridge. It was an extraordinary experience. Got to do mainly, in a lot of musicals there. And then since moving to New York City, which was almost 3 years ago now, I was incredibly lucky to be able to do some great work regionally with Guys and Dolls, and actually, a production of Fiddler on the Roof, which I had actually never done since my 6th grade school musical, where I played Perchik, and then I got to finally do it again as an adult, and it felt like a real homecoming, actually. I was so excited to get to finally do it as an adult.
I spent a lot of time in Antevka. Yeah.
Fiddler on the Roof. I've never been casted because they told me I don't look Jewish enough.
Me too.
Okay, I just had to jump in there.
So bad.
That's so
they
good.
won't cast me.
I was like, it doesn't
That's
get
so
me.
good.
We just need to put up our own. Let's just.
I was just gonna say, let's just do it ourselves.
I mean,
but also
I will do that. I will come out of retirement. I have spent a lot of time in Antevka.
I was so
Oh
mad.
yeah, but
Well, that's my
especially
family.
at the
Like that's
time,
my family.
Yeah. I mean, I could grow like the meanest rabbi beard. Like it was huge and disgusting. It was so good. And then actually, I was really lucky to be able to make my off-Broadway debut with.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. That was my next question.
Oh, great! Well, I'll include it in this bit too.
Yeah. So talk about Amid Falling Walls. I want to hear about. I want to hear about that and how you got involved with that.
Yeah. So, well, funnily enough, in terms of getting involved, I was actually going to be cast in the Australian production of Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish. By the folks they were going to bring that really successful production of Fiddler in Yiddish to Australia, but it didn't happen because of COVID. But having that sort of connection, I got in touch with them when I moved to the States, essentially just to say, hey, I was going to be in your production in Australia, but I'm in America now and, would love to connect. And they were actually bringing Fiddler in Yiddish back for like 7 weeks at the end of 2022. Which I went in and auditioned for. I didn't end up getting, but that then allowed me to kind of get in front of them again. And then they reached out essentially asking to do a reading of this new musical that they were developing, which was essentially a review called, in Yiddish, it's Zwischen fallen dick Event, which means Amid Falling Walls, which actually is taken from the partisan hymn that we sing every day on Yom HaShoah. And it was essentially a collection of songs that were collected actually by the artistic director's parents. That they collected all of these Yiddish songs that were written in the concentration camps and the ghettos. And we essentially kind of did a review of these songs. And then we put it up as a full production in November and December of 2023 at the Museum of Jewish Heritage in Battery Park. And I was a swing and dance captain in that, so I actually never went on because it was only a 4-week run. And I was actually much more than like a creative. I felt much more like an assistant or as an associate choreographer as opposed to an actor in it. But it was a beautiful group of people. Steven Skybell, actually, who was Tevye and Fiddler in Yiddish, and who's currently playing Herr Schultz in the current Broadway revival of Cabaret, was in it with us, as well as many alumni from Fiddler in Yiddish. And it felt incredibly powerful, actually, to be playing Jewish people singing songs, particularly like songs about the partisan fighters and songs about, yelling the lyrics, Jews have faith, let them go to hell. Like that was literally one of the lines. And it was one of the most powerful moments where I really saw Jews like screaming and fighting back. And, in a way that I hadn't before. And that I was really, honored that I could. And actually, as a little tidbit, that we had these screens across the audience that showed old photos and videos of the time. And at the end, there's a beautiful poem that's spoken about a boy who has his bar mitzvah in a DP camp. And we show pictures of weddings happening and bar mitzvahs happening in DP camps. And I actually asked, and I got to include the wedding photo of my grandparents in the end of the slideshow. They weren't married in the DP camp, but I wanted to include their wedding photo. And I got my mom on FaceTime during tech, and I showed her, I was like, guess what? Look over there. And she was at work, and she goes, oh my God, that's my parents. And then just broke down crying at work. And so I was really, it meant a lot that I could have them with me on stage.
I love that.
Sorry,
All right.
that's me done.
No. That was my next question. That was the question I wanted to ask about that, because I know it was probably, like you said, a very personal experience.
Yeah.
So, Shany, you are also a dancer and choreographer, and as I mentioned, you're a fellow AMDA alumni. How did you first get involved with dance? I know nothing about anything other than film out of Israel. I don't know really about the theater scene and the dance scene. Can you tell me how you got involved with that and some of the projects that you've worked on that you've been really passionate about?
Sure. So I don't know who I am without dance. I will start with that. I started when I was 3 and never stopped. My sister was a dancer till she was 18. And so I kind of followed her lead. But I really fell in love with it. I kind of knew from let's say 8 that this is what I want to do. And I had to go to the army as well. And so I really wanted to go as well. So I auditioned to try and get into an excellent dancer program during the army, which is basically what it says is that it's recognizing you as an athlete, and giving you time to go and pursue your sport. So for me, it was dance, and I was picked from the jury to be one of their dancers that goes as an artist to stay and perform and study while I was in the army. So it was very, very special, and I was recognized as an outstanding dancer in Israel. And so that kind of gave me the opportunity to go to New York and try theater, which I've never tried before, actually. I was a modern contemporary dancer, very, very strong scene in Israel of contemporary dance. So I was sure that I'm going to go into like companies and tour the world and the whole thing. But I fell in love with theater when I came to New York and did this like Broadway Dance Center summer intensive. And when I came back to Israel, I decided I'm going to look into more theater, which wasn't as developed as it is now. It's more developed now, but it's still not in the same level as New York. And so when I finished my service, I decided I'm going to audition for AMDA. And I said to myself, if I get in, it's a sign and I'm moving. And I didn't believe I'm going to get in. And then I got in. And I was like, oh, well, now I have to follow through. So
now you got to do it.
Yes.
Oh, no, I have to move to New York. That's so...
Damn.
Yeah, exactly. And so I couldn't believe I actually got accepted. And I've decided I'm going to move, and I moved at 2013 and I did a year and a half. So I just did all of the semesters one after another.
I did the same
Didn't take
thing.
any break. Yeah. And I'm actually really excited because I was invited to choreographer them this summer. So I'm really, really excited for this
At
opportunity.
the
It's kind of
LA campus or
no, actually, in New York, they
in New
have
York?
they have a summer festival for the dancers. I didn't know that for the whole school actually, and so I was invited to choreographer them, and I'm very honored. It's like a full circle for me. Um, and after that, I just started auditioning. I kind of went to through the whole path of non-union dancers. 5 a.m. being on the
Real
run.
life chorus line.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, real life chorus line. And I was very lucky to have landed my first job with RWS. I will never forget it because it was my first job in New York that I felt like, oh my God, I'm actually doing this, you know? Um, and that was one of the most impact like work that I've done starting up. And RWS sent me to Holland America Cruise Lines, which I started my cruise ship tour, and that was very exciting. And actually, that's when I found the aerial work,
That was my
which
next question.
yeah, so that's where I started my circus work. I fell in love with it. I'm also a personal trainer for the past 15 years almost, and strength women's strength was one of my most important and interesting things I've always been interested in. And aerial was kind of the midline between the dance for me and the strength work. And so I've become really good really fast because I had that. And I fell in love with it and decided I'm going to go and study circus, and kind of started that path until COVID. During COVID, I kind of stopped, like everyone else, the world just stopped. And I've decided I'm going to focus on choreography in the meantime because I had nothing else to do. And I've always loved choreographing, and I had a different voice, I think, um, because I had contemporary background and I shifted into theater. And that's what brought me into choreography. So as a choreographer, I'm trying to find that thin line of strength, and I work a lot with women, but I actually started with men because I wanted that like muscly movement. I wanted the floor work. I wanted um yeah, that's basically where I started, and then I felt like I needed to shift that world of masculine into the world of feminine, and I took it into a different path. So a lot of the work that I'm doing now is about strong women, women's empowerment. That's kind of where I'm at right now. And I also want to speak about another really, really important work that I'm really passionate about and kind of changed my life. I found this wonderful woman. Her name is Fran Atkins Spector. And she has a company called Spector Dance, and it's actually in California, in Monterey. And she offered me to, at first, I danced with the company. Um, and they do projects that basically dedicate their work to make a change in the world. And so her work really, really spoke to me. And it's not just dance; it's dance to make something better. And I really, really fell in love with it. And eventually, she offered me to join their board. And so I'm also on the board for the company. And I'm every month we have a meeting, and I just it's so fulfilling. And this woman is amazing. She's over 80 and she still creates. And so I just want to kind of give her a shout out, and just I love her work, and I think it's so important to take our art and make it into something.
How did you meet her?
Um, Funny question. Um, my friend was her student when she grew up, and they needed another dancer because one of the dancers got hurt, and she asked me if I wanted to come in, just help pre-production for her new show. And I said, yes, sure, no problem. And we kind of fell in love with each other in the room. Yeah, I really liked how she worked, although she was like all over the place, and she's gonna vouch for that. But her work was so passionate. She's really passionate about dance. She's really passionate about making changes and just do better. And we kept in touch after that one show, and then she offered me to be a soloist in another show that she did, and she flew me into LA, and I did that work with her, and we just kept on going from there.
I love when people meet artistically and just like, yep, you. I feel like we've all kind of had those moments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jana, you, like the rest of us, are performers. How did you get your start with that? And can you talk about some of the favorite projects that you've worked on?
Sure. So I have a non-traditional route to being a performer. I didn't go to school for it. I grew up dancing. I started at 3, same as Shany, and I fell in love at like 5. I think I knew it's what I wanted to do. Obsessed all the way. And Chorus Line was the movie that made me want to do it all. When I saw it, I watched it over and over again, and I get in trouble for watching it because of the dirty songs of, whatever. But, so yeah, going to school for it wasn't an option, and I didn't have the strength to like break up the family at 18. I had the strength to do it at 22. So I went to college for economics and nonprofit management, and always in the back of my mind, like I knew I wanted to go to school in New York so I could be in the dance scene. So I started like coat checking and catering and just saving money on the side so I'd be able to figure it out. When I graduated college, I got a bartending job and was like, here we go. So I was just kind of like a lost wild child trying to figure out how to become, I had no guidance. I didn't have anyone telling me how to do it. So it was a messy, wild time, but through choices and different things, I guess I had an internship at an agency. I auditioned for Alvin Ailey's pre-professional program and got in. So I did that for 6 months. And then I was looking around and I was like, what am I doing here? Like, I want training, but I'm not going to be in a company. Like, what am I doing? And so I left that. I auditioned for, there's a pretty well-known street jazz choreographer named Rhapsody James. And this was at the time pre-Instagram. She was doing, it was like the very beginning of dance intensives in the commercial world. She created something called Motivating Excellence. And it was like a 4-month program. She only took 10 girls, 10 guys. You had to audition. It was 4 days a week from 8 to 3 or 9 to 3. And it was so cheap. Bless her heart. It was so affordable. And there was a performance at the end of it, and you were just under her mentorship, and you trained in partnering for the commercial world, heels, being on camera, like commercial just like it was a commercial dance intensive. And that was huge for me because I had dreamed of being in that, and I got to do season 3 of that. And I guess after that's when it all kind of began, and just randomly auditioning time and time again for agencies and all that stuff, running around like a nutso person. And so I started doing gigs in New York, and you meet people and they help you out and all that stuff. And so I guess I did like a little tour with an artist, things like that. My most favorite jobs were dancing on SNL. Was like such a crazy
John's like, I didn't know this. Tell me about this.
So this woman, it's kind of like when you meet a woman. So I knew I was going to work with this woman, and I had auditioned a bunch, and then I finally got to. And her name is Danielle Flora. She's known as like the comedy choreo queen of New York City. She's kind of
what a title.
Yeah, she's kind of transitioned out a little just because she did it for a long time. But she was the resident choreographer at 30 Rock Building for all things comedy. So she was the resident choreographer of SNL for 15 years. She did 30 Rock episodes. She did like anything Jimmy Fallon, like anything in that building. And then the movies they would do, like Amy Schumer movie, like she was the one. So I got to work with her, and then we fell in love, and I owe that woman, so many of my dreams have come true because of that woman. So I think that the first time she hired me was actually for Lip Sync Battle. That was before any of the SNLs. And before Lip Sync Battle was Lip Sync Battle, the audition was listed as, it's a Jimmy Fallon like sketch spin-off series that's like greenlit for 10 episodes, and like nobody knew what it was. It didn't have a name yet. So I remember going to that audition and some girls leaving being like, what's this for? And I was like, don't go. This choreographer like does so much stuff. Stay, blah, blah, blah. So that became Lip Sync Battle. So I booked that, and that was like the biggest, most exciting thing. And we filmed 10 episodes in 10 days, and then it got greenlit for 8 more. So that was LA, and and re-auditioning, flying yourself out to LA, making it all work, all the things. But that experience changed my life. And because of working with her for that, Danielle Flora then just kind of calls you. So that's how I got to do SNL, and I got to do the opening monologue dance with Scarlett Johansson. I got to do the opening monologue dance with Elizabeth Banks, and I got to do like a short with what's the guy's name from? He's such a famous older actor, bald white guy, J.R. Simmons or J.K.
Simmons, who also is a musical theater guy. He was in that 90s revival, which I didn't know. My husband was like, oh, you didn't know that? I was like, oh, yes, like that's common knowledge that J.K. Simmons was in Guys and Dolls.
Yeah, so
this is the conversations I have at my house.
Those are great conversations. So yes.
Well, I know what I'm looking up on YouTube after this.
The Scarlett Johansson one's really funny, and I was so nervous because it was just scary. Like you get one, it's just scary, but it's so exciting because but anyways. So I've been really all of my I can say most of my commercial dance dreams came true, and especially with Lip Sync Battle, where it was a consistent paying job, and I got to dance with some of my closest friends, making people laugh was such a dream.
Are you in the one with Tom Holland that I see?
I'm actually
you are not.
I'm never next to the star, and I'm literally I'm right next to him on the left when he's dancing.
That comes up on my social media feed like weekly.
I wish I got residuals. Every time someone YouTube that, I wish I got paid. But I only get paid if someone like buys the episode. Like I get 5 cents or whatever.
I mean, big money.
Oh
Dancing is big money, kids. If you're thinking of going into the arts, this is. That's so cool.
Yeah, so I did that. That was amazing, and it moved me out to LA, and I ended up staying. And what's funny is how, like I didn't have like a mentor, I guess, or I was still in a phase of thinking like, oh, I must be doing something wrong. So even though I had success being in LA, the world felt very different, and I didn't click with all the way the dancers wanted to be or why they wanted to dance as much as I did in New York. So a part of me started to say, oh, maybe dance isn't for me out here. And I actually dove so hard into acting and fell in love with acting and put myself through my own kind of grad school program with acting, and I started taking writing classes, and then that led to me doing my own show. And then now I've actually started a theater career quite late, might I add. But I just did my first musical at 36, but I did it.
What musical did you do?
The biggest dream I've ever had. A new world premiere musical of 3 Summers of Lincoln.
Okay.
Just closed at La Jolla Playhouse.
That's a big venue.
Yes,
or as I used to call it, La Jolla. I definitely called it La Jolla. La Jolla.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Look, Gene Hackman, which we can unpack that if we want, didn't make his first movie until he was 35. So I am a big I am a big believer. I mean,
so we still have a chance.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in making things happen late in life. I think there's this myth that you have to be successful when you're 25 or something.
Yeah.
And like I was not a fully formed human at 25, and even if I had achieved what I wanted to, like career, I wouldn't have known what to do with myself, and I probably would have become like an alcoholic.
I am, LL Cool J was like my boss for a bunch of years, but beyond that, his motto, "Dreams don't have deadlines," has like stayed with me so hardcore from the moment of hearing it. So I just believe it.
I love that. So now we're going to jump into all of you guys together. So you recently created Third Gen Collective. Can you talk to me about how this happened? The projects you want this specific collective to work on now and in the future. We'll jump into your individual shows in a little bit, but I want to specifically focus on all three of you together.
I think, Shany, did I find you? Did I like stalked you? Yeah, that's what I did.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me this, because
And
I don't know this part of the
thankful
story.
for that.
So I had been working on my show, and then I know the composer and the musician for Shany's show, Luke. And so I follow him on Instagram, good old Instagram. And so he posted about this show he was doing called Third Gen, and everything in my body was like, what? And then I started looking at it and following it and being like, but wait, what? Like, this is what? And so it was, I don't remember what night, I don't remember what season, but I went alone to see her show. I think I only told John. I felt like I was like a stranger in the night, just like going. I sat by myself because I knew I was going to also get very emotional and it was going to be really intense for me. So I remember sitting by myself in like the middle back. And it was so beautiful. And I was just like, it felt like such a special event with someone I had never met, but I felt instantly so connected to. And she did a gorgeous talk back at the end. And I was like so nervous. And I was like, do I say something? I don't know. And then at the very end, I just was like, you have to say something. And so I shared, I don't even remember. And then afterwards, her and her husband, Shany and Raviv, are two of the kindest, most genuine people I think I've ever come across. And so they were so lovely. Yeah, I love you guys. They were so lovely. And so we just connected. And then when I did my show, Shany was lovely and she came to see that. So that's how we first met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's funny actually is that the show that Jana just closed, 3 Summers of Lincoln, is actually how I came into the picture.
Wait, was Eric Anderson in this show?
Yeah.
My husband did, we're going to cut this, Wizard of Oz with his late father in 2008.
Wow.
Wow.
Because theater geography.
What a
Yeah,
small
because
world.
I was like, oh, he left Gatsby. And like, I occasionally see him and his wife in the neighborhood. And I was like, what's he doing?
Going back to
Yes,
Gatsby.
I figured. Yeah,
What a gem that guy is. I love that man.
Yeah, so there's like 3 people in theater. Anyways, back to it.
Yeah.
So how did you get involved?
So this is the funny thing. So I go to an audition for 3 Summers of Lincoln, which is the show that Jana just finished being in, which was actually choreographed by her partner, John Rua. And I had never met him before. I knew who he was. He had been in the original cast of In the Heights and Hamilton, and he is a street dancer with a capital S, capital D. I am not. I went to that audition thinking for sure I was going to get cut first round because it was very Hamilton-like and, but on another level. And for some reason, he kept calling me back. And I managed to get to the finals for 3 Summers of Lincoln for the last round. I didn't end up booking the show, but he was incredibly kind and reached out to me and a couple of other people that came and auditioned for him and said, if you want to explore this style more and loved what you had to bring in the room, come to these pop-up classes that I'm going to be teaching. And I was like, well, I mean, he sees something in me that I clearly don't, so maybe I should go and explore this. And the first class, I was so out of my depth and absolutely petrified and just, I was like, this isn't me and stuff. But that's actually where I met Jana. And she said some incredibly lovely things to me, and we kind of hit it off. And then I find out that she's Jewish, and not only that.
But before this, John's Colombian, but he's like such an honorary Jew. Like he just loves everything Jewish and is happy about it. But that's like one of the first things he's like, you got to meet this guy, John, and he's Jewish because he knows how desperate I am. Like I don't know Jews in the commercial dance world, like maybe in theater, but I never had any Jewish dance friends. So that was also like this thing. He's like, he just knew that we would connect in some way, and so.
And then when we talked and then realized that not only were we 3rd gen, but also our grandparents came from the exact same town, we were like, all right, we need to get coffee like now. Yeah. And we just like went through all of our family history and all of and especially the fact that we were all really passionate about trying to find ways to tell our grandparents' stories, but in a more artistic way, and find ways to, like, make our own art. Because, always I think about is, we too often do, but we shouldn't wait for permission to,
Yep.
be artists. We
Yep.
gotta make the work ourselves. And I think this was particularly, work that actually I felt like I could make on my own. But then meeting Jana, and then Jana told me that Shany was going to be doing her show, an extended version, at Perry Dance Center. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go book a ticket. So I went in completely not ever meeting or knowing anything about Shany. And Jana just said, you got to go to this show. And I was like, okay. And then it said in the program that Shany was actually looking for other third gen people if they wanted to bring their stories to her to help actually create pieces of art afterwards. And I was like, okay, this is cool. So then I ran Shany down after her performance, which also was just so gorgeous and beautiful, and said, Jana Krumholtz said I need to come see you, and I'm a third gen, and I've got a story we want to tell. And I said, and I think the three of us need to get on a Zoom together very soon. And so we did, and then we managed to actually create, like a 501c3 nonprofit, which is dedicated to telling our third gen stories, also showing not only our grandparents' story, but also talking about our experiences being third gen as well.
So that kind of leads me to my next question. Why is it important that 3G stories get told? What do you think the experiences of grandchildren of survivors adds to the narrative and knowledge of the Holocaust? Why is it relevant and important?
Well,
Janet,
I'm gonna jump
please
ahead, and I'm gonna say, one, I think it's important to know your history. That's the baseline. Two, I think it's important to honor your history. And I might not know English very well, but I know that art speaks to everyone. Everyone hears music, everyone watches movies, not everyone, but some people go to theaters. And dance is a language that speaks without words and speaks to the heart. And I feel like if we can watch something that moves us and other people can watch something that moves them, and this kind of puts us in a level, like in a balanced level, that no one has to know words, no one has to know what happened before, but you feel the experience at the same time, then we are leveled. And I think that that's a very special thing. And that leads me to number three. Our next generation needs, in my opinion, to continue that honor to the past and to learn from the past, which I feel like we're lacking of sometimes. And so that's kind of what I wanted the third gen to be like, taking those stories and telling them in a different way that maybe other people can feel and understand differently. I don't know if that makes sense, but in my head it does.
Yeah. Does anybody else want to speak on that?
Yeah, I guess for me, that is it's like that's where we all are. It's like we all kind of feel like there's like a bridge for why we want to do it, and we all are aligned, but we kind of also land like we take up this whole span. So how do I'll just speak. I guess I start from where Shany's speaking of the honoring of the legacy. Like I think all three of us, from what we were speaking about, you as well, Jewish people, there's this undeniable gratitude for life, and I can't deny feeling it in every moment, every breath in my life. And so I know that that's because due to my grandparents. So what can I do with the gifts I've been given to honor them? So that is where this is born. But my show in particular, and I'm going to continue evolving it, and I will continue to make more art around their stories and my stories. But this show is very particularly around healing intergenerational trauma through telling my story of it, and how, I don't say it as directly, but 6 million Jews didn't die for me to be a dancer. And this can sound crazy, but 6 million Jews also died for me to be a dancer. Like they didn't die for any reason that has to do, but my place in it all, what can I do with my life knowing my history, and how can I honor all that they lost the best? And for me, that's living my truth and letting myself be who I am, which they didn't get that opportunity to do. So they worked so hard to survive, to then create a life. And so what am I going to choose something and be miserable every moment I'm alive to breathe? Like, that's my personal journey and my personal outlook. So my show revolves around that discussion. And why I am so passionate about it is because I think, like Shany is saying, learning from the past, what are we learning? What are we learning from it? We can tell the stories, and then I'm always like, and like we're saying, it wasn't talked about in the house. How did it make you feel? Or so now what are you afraid of? Are those rational fears, or are those fears from the past? How do we keep pushing the needle forward to further our people, to further our grandparents' legacy? Because yes, they were survivors, and like there's just so much more. And I think that every generation has their place in history, and they went through the horrors. Our parents, bless them, were the children of them who found the bridge to live a better life and get the educations. And then they had their children, and they gave us so many more opportunities. So now what are we going to do with that? I think let's do our damnedest to live free and fulfill our passions and purposes, So, and I think that goes across cultures. I think that discussion.
Yeah.
And then I think that leads to better treatment of humanity and each other, because you understand yourself and you're living, authentically in your life. So that's where my show lives. And then that's how we all that's where that oversection of creating this together lies.
John, any
Beautiful.
thoughts on why 3G stories are so important?
Well, I actually just, for me, it's almost kind of a very much like, create what isn't there. I actually just haven't seen any really stories about third generations, which is why in a way, like the movie A Real Pain was actually such a revelation, because I was like, oh, this is a story I haven't heard before. I mean, obviously we know that the stories of survivors and our grandparents need to be told as well, but I think what it also shows is that this was not an event. This was not an isolated event in the sense of it only happened in the 30s and 40s. And, it has rippled and changed the face of everything we know to be true today. And I think there is something really to be said about also trying to figure out who we are and what we are from that, and what do we do with it? I always say, I say on these tours, I was like, it's not enough to just know this happened.
Yeah,
like you can have all the knowledge in the world, but it's useless if it's not active or if it's not put towards something. And I think for me, at least, why I'm trying to figure this out is that I mean, at least in terms of what my show's about, and I know we'll get to that in a sec, but it's really just about, I just want to feel less alone, and I want people to feel less alone. And I think so much of the times, especially 3G's survivors and Jewish people in general, have felt we can be very lonely. It's a lonely people, and we can feel so alone from everyone else. And I think there's also a way to tell third generation stories, because it shows like, look, they didn't win. They didn't win. We're here. And to say, that this is also not only an exploration of the stuff that we carry, but again, look at the victories we've been able to achieve on behalf of our grandparents. I mean, just the fact that my grandfather was able to die with having 7 great grandchildren. I mean, that's everything to me, and was everything to him, and it's everything to our family. So I think the voices need to be heard, because it shows, like, look, we're not gone, and we'll never be gone.
Yeah, and I dove into my show, so we don't have to go back to visit that. But jump onto why what is the third generation perspective? I think that the further distance the generations get from it, different things can be revealed that were too fragile and intense to get to having experienced it or being the direct children of it. There are conversations I can have that my mother just physically cannot. And so it is our duty. And I have, I have a sister and 2 cousins. I don't know how passionate or obsessed they are with it. They don't have to be. But it's like there are a few who are sparked by wait. I think we carry, there's like a through line in us to history that's so invaluable. And if we can speak about it and try to push humanity towards healing and crossing the bridges, which is what our grandparents meant by never forget, then what better gifts that we can do for them.
Knowing now that that's what your grandmother said to you, and possibly being something that might be triggering, looking back on that, why did you decide to call your show 6 Million Didn't Die Is For You, ... Because I wrote that this was a really striking title before I knew about what your grandmother used to say. Why did you decide that's what you wanted to call your show?
At the time, I honestly think it was just the most honest way. It just the way this whole show came through me, I just let it be itself, and I really tried to not get in the way. So it just was the most honest. Like, it just was, this is what it is, and I know it's striking, so that obviously is like, but I also, to a fault, like, I tried to put it up somewhere, and because of what's going on with the times, they were like, can you change the title? And I was like, let me sleep on it. And that's a whole other discussion or episode. But I came back and I said, no, for now, that is the truth of the title. And so I've danced with the idea of changing it because it is so intense and like semi-aggressive. But it's what it is.
It's a Holocaust story. I don't think
it's what it is.
Yeah.
So.
I don't think you can dumb down something like intergenerational trauma and the Holocaust to make people comfortable. People should be uncomfortable. I think this is how I feel about history in general, is history is not pretty, and history is messy, and it's confusing, and it makes people feel things, and trying to take that, which people are right now, trying to erase that does not do anybody justice, because as John was saying, we're not only not going to learn from it, but it also creates this like idealized vision of like what used to be. Like when you whitewash something, it's like, well, it was great. It's like, no, the 50s was not ideal. Black people had no rights. Jews didn't really have a lot of rights. Like not everybody had a white picket fence and, 2.5 children and a dog. So good for you for not giving into that pressure. Because especially as an artist, I feel like we're people pleasers. Yeah. So we're like, yeah, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. And you're like,
in the moment talking to the person, I was like, oh yeah, yeah. But thank God I've learned to be like, let me sleep on it.
Which is another reason it's better to do things when you're older, because when you're 22, you're like, yeah. But when you're in your 30s, you're like, no, I'm not doing that. Yeah. So is it a dance show? Can you explain a little bit about it?
Yeah. So it's spoken word and movement. One woman show with projections. So yes, there's movement pieces intertwined throughout, but as of now, it's a 45-minute standalone piece with me speaking to the audience and moving and using some projections to show the newspaper clippings and some photos and things like that. Yeah.
It's a great show.
Thank you.
So it's been produced already. Yes, you've done this. Yes, that's what I thought. And where did you do this?
So I premiered it at LA, the Hollywood Fringe Festival. I think it was the summer of 2023.
Okay.
And then I did about 4 or 5 shows out there. And then I got invited to submit my show to the LA Women's Theater Festival. And so I did, and then they accepted me as one of their finalists. So I got to perform a 20-minute excerpt of my show there in April 2024. And then I put it up. I did Macbeth at Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and I just put up a very private reading of it to company members there. And then I produced one night show in New York in December of 2023, I think, and that's when Shany came to see it at Arts on Site for some community out there. So yeah, the last time I did it was in Oregon. That's the last time I shared it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love people making art and self-producing and pushing stuff. It's a hustle, man. Not everybody,
it really is.
We can't all be Lin-Manuel Miranda. So Shany, they both have talked about your show, which is Third Gen: Survivor Story, and it premiered off-Broadway last year. I want to talk about this, how it came about, what it's about, and how it ended up getting produced off-Broadway.
Sure. So basically it's a dance memoir that is featuring my grandparents' survival stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm taking both stories and presenting them at the same time on stage, but in different areas of the stage. So the stage is basically splitted by a table. The table is turning into different elements. It's like the third person in the room. And it's turning into different elements as they go through the story. Luke Wygotney, who wrote the music, actually wrote it especially for the show, and was very special because it's the first time that we worked with a composer in the room. So the whole show was produced in the room, all together, dancers and the composer. And how it came about 5 years ago, I wanted to go, I went through my grandparents' stories and kind of rewatched it. And I felt like I need to do something with it, but I didn't know what. And then during COVID, I was like, I need to dig a little bit deeper. And what am I good at? I'm good at dancing. I'm good at moving. Let's just, take those stories and think how I can talk without talking. And so I got in the room and I just started moving to their voices, telling the stories to Yad Vashem. And that's when the idea came to me. But again, I didn't know exactly how I'm going to do it. And so when I came back to New York, I asked 2 of my friends if they can come into the room, and we basically used their testimonies as spoken words. And we laid on the ground and I put the spoken words and I said, just move. And that's how we started. And then I brought Luke in, and he has this amazing song called Sorrow, who kind of guideline the whole story. We finished with the song Sorrow, and the dancers are dancing that specific song. This song is a song of hope, but it doesn't forget what we went through. So basically, it talks about how we're moving forward and how we're looking forward to the future, but it says we're never going to forget what happened. There's always going to be some type of journey that we went through. And I felt like that is a very strong moment to finish with, to remember that we are resilient and we are strong and we are always surviving, always. So I think that was the most important thing to me, to finish with that and not necessarily with the horrific journey that we went through.
And
so that's
and Luke is also a third gen.
Luke is also a third generation, and everyone in the show is Jewish. Only our associate, actually, Charlene, who's not Jewish at all, and I wanted a different eye, actually, so that's why I brought her, and she was completely in with me. And that was an amazing perspective to have. Someone who is not from our culture, who is not from our history, taking another look and giving her opinion. And that was amazing. And about your question, how it was produced, it is all self-made. My husband is a huge part of it. He helped me building the storyline from. We have 3 hours of each of them speaking, so we needed to cut a little bit and do a whole dramaturgy portion. So he really helped in that world, and he built up the video as well, because we're also using the video and their testimonies in the background while performing. So he helped with this and building the whole business plan for it. And I started at the Spark Festival, which accepted us, and we started with a 20 minutes production. That's when I met Jana, and we've decided it was good enough after that to continue the work, and we got a lot of really great responses. People said, we want to see more, although the testimonies are in Hebrew, so I wasn't sure how people are going to accept that. But we did put English underneath. So after that, we did a fundraiser, and we decided just a general fundraiser, and we've decided we're going to try and find another space. And Paradance offered their space for it, and we said, you know what, let's just go for it. And we put a lot of our own money into it, and we put 2 nights last November 2024, and happily, yeah, that's when we met John as well, and started this collective. And now we are looking forward for a few more things that are starting to work. We hope to have it a few more times this year, and hopefully in the next few years. I really want to make it a whole festival of stories. And that's my hope for it. But big dreams.
You got to dream big, man. You got to dream big.
Yeah.
John, so your show is currently in development, correct?
Correct.
And it is called The Only Ones. So is this a dance show? Is it spoken word? What
Yeah.
Give me the deets.
I, in a way, feel like I have stolen from Jana and Shany and just combined them into this show. So I've essentially tried to make it essentially, like a one-man monologue, but with dance in it.
Okay.
And the idea is that I would be telling my story in conjunction with my grandparents, and I would have 2 dancers play my grandparents.
Okay.
Essentially having the idea that because they are no longer alive, they dance, they don't speak.
Wow. That's really powerful.
Yeah. And I sort of am trying to I'm trying to work out the structure. I had one read through actually with Jana, and Shany was unable to be there then, but also provided incredible feedback of just essentially just the word vomit first draft of just everything that I had so far. And there are some, it's still very much, in early stages. But essentially why I called it The Only Ones was, and this is also in the parallels I think that I have experienced mostly in my life growing up, is that sort of I always felt like I was the only one who ... I felt very alone and singular in most of my lived experiences. I found it very hard to connect with other people who were going through or felt the same way that I did. And I think that's also very true of Jewish people in general. I think like I said, I think we are a very isolated group of people, and people that feel like, why does this only happen to us?
We are the chosen people. We're chosen to suffer.
Were we chosen all right?
To suffer?
Yeah, exactly. And I think there is something that I was trying to find, which is that essentially what happens is that we are actually all alone in our experiences because no one has our experiences. But in that aloneness, do we actually find community, and we actually get connected to each other because of it. And so that's what I'm trying to explore in my piece while trying to sort of tell my experience growing up with that feeling, as well as also trying to figure out how that can sort of relate to the history of my grandparents, as well as their also lives post-war as well. So that's the idea.
All right, so this last portion is my Actor Studio ripoff. I ask all my guests these same questions, and they should not be long answers. They're just supposed to be like quick little things, and I'll ask each of you can answer. So what is your favorite Yiddish word?
Drek.
Okay, John?
Schlep.
How about you, Shany?
A große Metzie.
Oh, that's a long one.
It means a big what?
A große Metzie. Like, it's not that, for example, on a man, he's not that great.
He's not that
He's okay. Well, I like that one. That'd be a new favorite one.
that's
All right.
fine.
So we'll just go through order. What is your favorite Jewish holiday?
I think Passover.
Okay. John?
I'm going to say Passover too.
All right. Are we going 3 for 3? What's your favorite Jewish holiday?
Shavuot.
Oh, Shavuot. She just... She likes dairy.
Yes, I do.
really big on the ice cream. If you were to have a bar or bat mitzvah today, what would the theme of your party be? And for those of you that did not have your bar and bat mitzvahs in America, I'm talking about like the big theme party. If you were to have a b'nai mitzvah today, what would the theme of your party be? Jana?
I mean, honestly, as much as like dance wasn't allowed, this is what's so funny sometimes. My theme was Jana Takes Center Stage, which was my favorite film at the time. And each table was a dance film. So every table was like, one was West Side Story, one was Chorus. So I would do the same.
Okay. Yeah. John, what about you?
Yeah, I didn't have the sort of American bar mitzvah sort of experience. But what I loved was that the venue that it was in it looked like a big Hollywood backlot. So in a way, I sort of feel like I would make it more about like movies.
Okay.
Like Hollywood movie making. Yeah.
Right.
But go more into that. Yeah.
Shany, how about you? If you would have a big party?
Dogs and chocolate.
Dogs, which do not mix, but I love that.
That's great.
I'm a crazy dog person.
Yeah.
All right. What profession other than your own would you want to attempt?
Someone else go.
Okay.
You know, I don't know why, but I've always been like, I would love to know how to fly a plane.
I was just thinking that.
Like to be a pilot?
Too.
Oh, well then just say that.
No, but I've always wanted, not as a career. That's just something I want to know how to do.
You know, you can learn how to fly a plane.
I know. It's
I do know, which is why I'm still like,
it is still a thing you can do. You can definitely still.
I think being a pilot would be really cool.
Jana, if you don't want to be a pilot, but you still want to fly a plane.
I think it's still in the art, like a filmmaker, like a full-time, I get to do all these things, but to really have the profession of, a movie producer, like running the show and getting to say like, this is going to be made and this is how I want it. And, yeah.
Okay. How about you?
I have so many, but I will pick 2 because I can. Astronaut.
Okay.
And interior designer.
Good one.
It's like my dog and chocolate.
One of those seems more achievable than the other.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
okay, and last,
you never know. She might be going to space in 10 years. Like I would.
Who knows?
No comment.
You never know.
If heaven is real and God is there to welcome you, what would you like to hear them say?
Grandma is waiting for you.
What did you say, Shany?
Grandma is waiting for you.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say your dad's over there. And slash
You're making me cry.
I know. But slash the fun version would be that looked like a lot of fun.
How about you, Jana?
Here's coffee. That's the fun part
coffee.
for me.
I think just like thank you, you did it.
So is there anything else that we did not talk about that you guys are like, I have to talk about this?
Well, we do have a show coming up at Arts on Site. We're doing a night. Arts on Site is going to produce a night of our work. So we're going to do excerpts from all 3 of our shows, and that will be our first thing
Collective.
of sharing third gen collective work as a unit, which is very exciting. So the potential date is August 7th. We're about to lock it in, but it might change. But if people just want to follow along, or if we can share that with you at a later date, we're very excited about that.
And how would they be able to follow along with the collective to be able to get tickets to that?
Our Instagrams is the way.
Great.
I know that Shany does have a third gen Instagram.
Yes. Thirdgen.project.
Thirdgen.project.
Great. Amazing.
Thirdgen.project.
Well, assuming that I'm still alive and well, I will absolutely be there with bells on and probably drag my husband, because I drag him to everything Holocaust related. It's just how it works in our house.
How fun.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to sit down and speak with me. This has been great. I am Nicole Kelly, and this has been She Brew in the City.